to be here, and I'm really honored to be included in this issue. I'm going to read my essay entitled The Mockingbird of 79th Street. I live on the 17th floor of an apartment building on the corner of East 79th Street and 2nd Avenue. And one Sunday in March, a few weeks into the closing of schools and businesses in New York City, a bird began singing outside my window. At first, I thought I was hearing the call of a willet or a blackbird, but when I stepped onto my terrace to listen, I was caught up in a trilling unlike any other. The notes were repeated and then changed and repeated. There was one line of music, then that one line again, and after a time, a new song took over. A song made up of 16 different verses and an equal number of refrains. I did not identify the bird composing these tunes right away because I was struck by the thought that I was actually hearing a bird singing in the middle of Manhattan. Music had replaced the clamor of jackhammers and the grinding of traffic. The next morning, my window was open to the cool spring air, and again, I heard the bird sing. Binoculars in hand, I stepped out onto my terrace and followed the sound to the building across the street, and then to the wraparound terrace of a penthouse. Pulling the binoculars up over my eyes, I scanned the building to my left, and atop an old round water tower, I spied the small shadow of a gray-brown bird. I could just make out his body twitching as he sang. Every so often he flew up and into the air, a white flash of wing, as if he was trying to catch an insect, only to land back down again in the same spot. After a 10-minute concert, he flew across the street, perched on top of a chimney, and began his chorus and dance again. I ran back inside, got on my computer, and did a search. The bird was a northern mockingbird. That day was full of music as the mockingbird sang all day and into dusk. Around 7 p.m., his monotonous and ever-changing melody ceased for the night, only to begin once again at first daylight. The repetitive routine of pandemic isolation soon became enveloped in the song of the mockingbird. His voice was lilting and light, sweet and soothing. I did not care that everyone around seemed to be gone. I had a companion in quarantine, the mockingbird of 79th Street. When I was 23 and had first moved to New York City, I took singing lessons with a middle-aged man named Tony, who lived in Midtown. Tony would greet me in his signature outfit, an ascot tucked into a loose-fitting jacket. He had unmistakably dyed black hair and an ear-shattering speaking voice that was always jovial and upbeat. Tony assigned me old-fashioned songs to sing like Baubles, Bangles, and Beads and The Party's Over. And when he realized I was having a hard time relating to his standard repertoire, he started teaching me difficult arias from famous operas. The music was challenging and dramatic, and I responded, singing freely and without constraint. Tony urged me on, cheering when I hit a high note or completed a long passage on one breath. And through voice lessons, I discovered the glory of singing. My entire body resonated when I sang, a conduit for the pulsing of the planet. To sing was a transformative and circular experience. Sounds were sent from me only to be received back into my body moments later. Through music, I connected my spirit with the world and the world to me. I was uplifted, a sensation which lingered after each lesson during my walk back home through the cavernous city streets. A mockingbird sings what they hear around them. They mostly mimic the sounds of other birds in phrases which they repeat, but they can also imitate the quack of a duck or the croak of a frog. And it is said they can even reproduce the sound of a car alarm. I listened for the sounds of the city in my Mockingbird's concerts, but nothing echoed an ambulance, fire truck, or other piercing blast that often traveled from east to west across 79th Street. No, my Mockingbird's playlist had nothing but music. Favorites like tweet, 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 Dido, 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 Bert, 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 Bert. I began to wonder if my Mockingbird was lost. Did he take a wrong turn from the wild and end up in New York City? Each day, he flew north to south and south to north across the street to stop on a favorite perch, the water tower, a chimney, an aerial, and fill the upper canyons of 79th Street with his music. He sang at dawn to wake me. He sang at noon to entertain me. He sang at sunset to end my day. I was awestruck by his simple melodies and the commitment he made to repeat, repeat, repeat the same notes. A sweet small cycle of song became the underscore of my sequestered life. As much as I progressed in my early voice lessons under Tony's tutelage, I was petrified of singing in public. Even though I took years and years of dance classes as a young girl, I was never comfortable on stage. It was fine if I could stand in the back or sing in the choir, but not alone or in a spotlight. Many disastrous singing auditions followed. No amount of preparation helped. If I had to sing in public, I might believe in my abilities for a few seconds, but they would invariably vanish into one huge fail. Thomas Jefferson had a pet mockingbird that would sit on his shoulder and sing while he played the violin. In Harper Lee's novel, Atticus Finch states that it is a sin to kill a mockingbird. They do not eat up your garden or nest in your corn. All they do is sing their hearts out for you. My mockingbird sang his heart out for me all spring. Some say that mockingbirds represent resilience. As a spirit animal, they encourage humans to find their voice. The mockingbird of 79th Street created a calmness during the days of anxiety and confusion. Every day he invited me to sit and listen. Most of all, he reminded me to sing. By Memorial Day, I began to wonder about how long he might stay. At the top of the windpipe sit the vocal cords. To sing, you inhale and let out a sustained breath over the cords, which makes them vibrate and produce sound. The voice was the very first musical instrument. Song predates spoken language. There is no culture in the entire world that does not sing. The act of singing is considered a super spreader of the coronavirus. When you push air through your vocal cords, you can also push out droplets of the infection from your lungs. Singing pushes these droplets much further and wider than speaking does. Performance anxiety is defined as not being able to control the thought that stepping onto a stage is a dangerous act. I will forget the lyrics, not be able to hit that high note, make a fool of myself, and sound so awful I will be booed off stage. Are thoughts that dominate a singer's mind. Stage fright is perhaps the biggest fear reported by American adults, many of whom claim they would rather be in their own coffin than give the eulogy at a funeral. Catastrophic auditions did not stop me from singing. I lived on the West Coast for a while where I studied with a woman named Raven who started each lesson with shouting exercises, and taught me how to sing very, very loudly. Still, I never got over my fear of singing in public. On the day I turned 50, I thought, well, that's it. I'm going to lose my singing voice. Like Joni Mitchell, like Julie Andrews, my voice will disappear. It will lose its shape. It will age. One day I will wake up and it will be gone. I will open my mouth and all I will be able to do is croak. And then I met a woman at a party who told me she was taking singing lessons with a teacher on the Lower East Side, and something inside me ached to sing again. I asked for her teacher's number and called the next day for an appointment. By the end of June, the Mockingbird of 79th Street had been cutting back his concerts. He sang only in the morning for a brief period and for a brief period in the afternoon, and the city began to open up. There were more cars on the street and people inside apartments. Restaurants and bars served people at tables on the sidewalk. The city noises returned as the song of the mockingbird faded, and one day his song was gone. At my first lesson, I told my voice teacher that all I wanted to do was to find out if I'd lost my singing voice yet. John laughed and then proceeded to reteach me to breathe into every cell in my body and then release air over my vocal cords on a pitch. So I sing, loudly if I like. On good days, I even hit a few high notes. Growing old made my voice a bit different, but as long as I can breathe, I will sing. My mockingbird is fine. He is doing what birds do, I imagine. Mating season is over, and he is on to the next adventure. Perhaps he will be back next spring. A quiet chirp or a distant howl reminds me how fragile is the connection between all living things. I hear a taxicab honk its horn. A garbage truck rumbles over a pothole. I take a deep breath, let out a sound, listen for the world to echo back. A circle unbroken. Thank you very much.